welcome to the CNBC TV 18 special brought to you in association with the Confederation of Indian Industries Young Indians. I'm Shireen Bhan. As the Finance Minister gets ready to present Budget 2011, we at CNBC TV 18 are asking what young India wants from its policy makers. Let me throw some facts your way. India's average age in 2020 will be under 30. In the US, it will be 37, and in Japan, 48. We're hoping that this will improve India's savings rate and that our dependency ratio will improve as well. But the big question is, can India take advantage of this demographic window in the next couple of days and decades actually and garner the benefits? To discuss all of this, I've got with me a power-packed panel. Lots of young Indians. Let me start by introducing you to them. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Rajya Sabha MP, a former telecom entrepreneur, a man who's been making the headlines. Rajiv, many thanks for joining us here. Conrad Sangma, leader of the opposition, a Wharton graduate who's decided to join politics as well. Conrad, many thanks for joining us. Vikram Akula, a familiar face on the channel, the man who brought microfinance into the mainstream in the country, the chairman and founder of SKS Microfinance, and Chavi Rajawat. Unusual, her story. She's the Sarpanch of the Sond village in Rajasthan. Many, many thanks for joining us here. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, let me start by asking you, over the last 5 years, everyone has spoken about India's demographic dividend. Do you believe we're actually at the point we're going to be reaping the demographic dividend, or is this going to turn into a demographic nightmare for us?
I think we're already reaping the dividend. The consumerist economy component of the Indian economy is growing leaps and bounds. That is a function clearly of the young Indian. You can also see the vibrant entrepreneurship that is out there for everybody to see, and aspirations. These are all, in a sense, manifestations of a young, impatient Indian. So I think if young India doesn't influence the direction that India goes and is sitting on the sidelines, we may have the demographic dividend all right, but it may not be something that the future Indians are going to be too happy about.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about how we can actually get young India to facilitate change. But let me bring to you, statistics and data. Now, we're talking about 25% of the world's workers in the next 3 decades would be Indian. About 300 million youth will be entering the labor force by 2025. And yet, CII and the Boston Consulting Group put out a report that says India will face a talent gap. How do you align these two scenarios?
What we really need to be connecting this concept of young India to is a fresh, new way of government. The whole concept of youth is not age. It's about people thinking out of the box. And that is where government as an institution is 65 years old.
Yeah.
It is old and it's old and it's old. It is resistant to any form of innovation, any form of criticism, any form of fresh thinking.
Conrad Sangma, if your family wasn't in the business of politics, and let me call it the business of politics, would you have come back from Wharton and actually gotten back into this?
I actually came back and I was in a business, and I set up a call center in Shillong, and it was only after about 6-7 years of running the business did I decide that I will enter. Of course, I was working at the party level,
yeah.
So I would have, and I came basically with the intention of trying to do something for the Northeast especially.
Are people like you who actually believe that you can be the change that you want to see being turned away from politics because of the state of affairs at this point in time?
In my case, the situation is slightly different. In fact, when I first entered, I took over as finance minister in Meghalaya.
The youngest finance minister.
Yes, I got a chance to work on the budget of the state. So therefore, situation has been positive in a way for me. And I feel the potential, yes, is blocked because of the fact that they don't get an opportunity to come in front. And our system is to some extent blamed for that.
Before I get to my other panelists, I want to ask you, you were the youngest finance minister. When you were putting together the state's budget, what were you prioritizing, and how do you expect to walk that tightrope where you have to think about fiscal prudence and you have to think about the aspirations of several constituencies? Yes. What was that experience like for you?
Meghalaya is one of the states where almost 85% of the budget or the funds come in from central government.
Yeah.
And we depend to a great extent on central government's funding. And that, in fact, is an issue that it bothers me a lot.
Yeah,
I would like to
ask you that. As a young person, do you actually want the northeastern region to be labeled as a backward region and hence continue to get funds from the center? Does it not bother you as a young politician?
If I could give some information and data, there were issues in areas where even CAG has given reports.
Let's not talk about CAG reports.
I know, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch wrong nerves. But I just want to mention it from a state-specific point of view. That there were areas where almost 600-700 crores of revenue, which is a lot for
Yeah.
a small state like ours, which has 4,000 crores
Yeah.
of budget. Were being leaked out and were not being able to collect because of right policies and right systems being in place.
Yeah.
So I focused on these issues and even tried to work on trying to get systems in place. So
And how successful were you? Be honest.
I was out in 1 year, and the problem was I didn't get time to do it.
I think our country has a great opportunity to turn this young population into a tremendous asset. The key element here is, are we going to invest in human development? Let's take health. I'll stay away from microfinance for a moment. In our country, we spend 1% of our GDP on health.
Yeah.
China spends 2%. We're spending half as much as China. So certainly we need to spend more, but then we also need to think about involving the private sector in smart public-private partnerships.
I want to come to this issue of, and you're facing it in your business as well. Profit has become a bad word. If you want the private sector to come in, it cannot be on the basis of charity. It cannot be the generosity of the private sector. You need to allow profit.
If you look at the actual facts on the ground, poor people vote with their actions.
Yeah.
Because for the poor, they're very clear. Whether it's access to finance, whether it's quality education,
Yeah.
quality healthcare, they understand that only by paying do you actually get a quality service, you get accountability. I'm not saying that the state shouldn't spend. The state should spend, and they should spend much more than we're doing, but they should spend it differently. They should spend it in a way that harnesses the ability of the private sector to make those services available for people.
All right, Chavi, let me come to you. There's a lot of talk on allocating more money to schemes like the NREGA, to schemes like the Bharat Nirman, the JNNURM. By the way, she completes 1 year in office today as the Sarpanch of her village, so a big round of applause to you, Chavi. But does it really translate into a change at your level, at the district level, at the village level?
When we speak of rural India, I think we're in a very, very, very pathetic situation. Just to give you an idea, my village does not even have safe water. And I don't mean just potable water. I'm talking about water not even safe for irrigation, agriculture. So that is what we took on priority along with sanitation and afforestation. So we requested the government officials to sanction our projects on priority basis. And what finally gets sanctioned is one Anganwadi and one, not even a complete road. 10th of June, I got 2 projects sanctioned. The work of both of them has only just begun. So what development can you possibly expect?
That's a very important point, Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Budget after budget, we talk about NREGA is going to get 20% more, Bharat Nirman will get 10% more, and so on and so forth. But what is it actually translating to on the ground? Nothing.
We have actually reduced government to legislating and spending. You will have this headline saying NREGS hits 100,000 crores or some number.
Yeah.
The budget is 10 lakh crores.
Yeah.
Now, as if that makes a difference to me. Yeah. For example, you take that 400-page budget document. Yeah. I challenge anybody in this room to make any sense out of that document in telling me whether that budget of this year is an improvement on last year. All it'll tell you is there is more money being spent on the following 8 heads, with absolutely no sense, no sensitivity on how it is transforming people's lives, if it is at all.
I find myself in a bit of an awkward situation here, but I'm actually going to defend the government.
That's a surprise.
NREGA, for all its problems it may have in different places, it has infused a significant amount of money into rural areas. Yeah. Wages have gone up. Leakages are there, no doubt about it.
But has it not distorted the labor market? And you've got people actually, has it generated employment? It was a scheme to generate employment, Bikram. Has it generated employment, or only has it put money into the hands of the rural consumer?
Right. So, look, it may not have met its stated outcomes in terms of generating certain mandates of employment, but in terms of distorting the labor market, I would say to the contrary, it put a floor on what the wages are that forced people to have to pay for higher wages, and that infused money into the economy. Now, I think there are better ways to do it. As Rajiv said, it's not just legislation and spend, which is the starting point, but legislation and spend, and then figure out how to spend smartly.
The thing is, if you spend 25% of the budget every year on poverty eradication schemes, there must be somebody in the government system that says, in the next 10 years, this will disappear. But there is no answer, because it is essentially shooting in the dark and say, something will happen.
Are Indian politicians doing enough? Are they even worried about selling the idea of reforms to the average voter? Is that happening?
The point is, it's not happening. And I don't disagree with what Rajiv is saying. A simple example, you see, NREGS is everywhere now. They have got an MIS system. And accounts have to be created. Now, you will find in most of the villages, especially in Northeast India, most of the areas don't have banks, in the vicinity. So therefore, you're finding most of the VECs not having, any option to open a bank account.
Yeah.
Therefore, the money doesn't come in.
Yeah.
And even if the money comes in after like maybe 6-7 months of opening the bank account, already the financial year is over.
Yeah.
And therefore, they don't get the money. So there are these bottlenecks, and I think, you see, the start is there.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of work to be done.
You've got disempowered, disenfranchised youth.
Given our demographics, it also has to be a significant self-employment-driven approach as well.
Entrepreneurship is a vital element of the growth story of India.
How do we get the process of fixing our governance?
I think the word is accountability. We need to make our leaders more accountable.